Do you dream of living in Spain without a car? Maybe you imagine walking everywhere, jumping on the metro, catching fast trains as you whiz between cities.
No traffic, no search for parking, and no car insurance bill.
Yep, the European car-free dream. Look, I've lived in Spain with a car and without a car. And it's true that in some locations and for some lifestyles, that ideal no-car European life is really possible. But in some parts of Spain, depending on where you live, and for some lifestyles, it can be handy to have a car around. And there are scenarios as well where having a car really is kind of a must-have. And just because you do own a car in Spain doesn't mean that you're condemned to live a car life. So in this video, I'm going to spend the whole day traveling around Madrid, but without my personal car. I'm going to use metro, bus, commuter trains, car share, bikes, the whole lot. And as we go, I'm going to tell you how each transport option fits into a car-free life in Spain. And by the end of the video, you'll have all the information you need to be able to decide whether a car-free life is possible and is the right choice for you in Spain before you even set foot in the country. And by the way, if I look like a fright in this video, it's because we have a 1-month-old daughter, so bear with me. So if you live in a city, then the core of your car-free life is likely to be a combination of walking, but also metro and bus. And here's the thing, public transport in Spain is really of high quality across the board. It's well funded, it's safe, it's modern, and it's used by almost everyone in some form or another, even those who own cars. And take metro, for example. There's metro systems across the country in cities all over Spain, some more extensive than others. And look, there are differences. Barcelona, for example, it's 24 hours on a Saturday. Madrid's is never 24 hours. Barcelona, again, you can pay with contactless as you go through. In Madrid, they haven't quite implemented that yet. And across the board, the prices are good. You know, if you buy a 10-trip ticket in Madrid, you end up paying less than €1 per ride if you're traveling around the central area of Madrid. And the systems are getting better, you know, as the green transition happens and cities and governments realize that people want more and accessible and quality public transport, it's getting easier to use the public transport. There's more extensive networks. It's more user-friendly. You know, my Metro card here in Madrid works also on the full bus network as well. And while metro often gets all the hype, the urban bus networks, the bus networks throughout the country are really extensive. They'll be more extensive than the metro, often getting you out to, hospitals or far-flung neighborhoods or out to surrounding villages that are around the cities. And if you're trying to get somewhere in the middle of the night, there's generally night buses that will operate throughout the night at a reduced schedule. And again, really safe throughout the country. And you know what I love about public transport in Spain and in Europe generally? It's used across the board by pretty much everyone to some degree or another. And I just think that's fantastic that there's this general public support for this mode of transport, which is super handy and super sustainable. And just a tip, when you're looking for a home, an apartment in a city, check how close the place is to the nearest metro stop or how connected it is to the bus network. A 5-minute walk to the bus or metro is very different from a 20-minute walk. And the fact that we live in Madrid right beside a metro stop, really well connected, and a good metro stop that has good lines that connect with, central parts of the city is part of the reason we don't really need to use our car that much. But honestly, the most common transport that we use is this, walking. Most of our trips are just out our door. And I think the key is, if you want to live that lifestyle of being able to walk to so many places, walk around your neighborhood and spend a lot of time on foot, is choose a vibrant neighborhood that has kind of almost everything you need within 5, 10, 15-minute walk. Muchas gracias. Markets, your hairdresser, the hardware store, local cafes and bars, having all of these places near you and moving around and visiting them on foot just leads to these little micro connections, running into familiar faces, and these little encounters with people that you know and that you see here and there and you can say hi to. Studies have shown these little connections do increase our happiness quotient, and if you're locked in your car, you just never have those experiences. So really, pick a vibrant neighborhood if this car-free life is important to you. It really is a wonderful way to live. But there is something I want to warn you guys about, so let's head this way and grab a bite to eat. Hola, buenas. Gracias. Spicy. This is a great little tapas bar and cafe in our neighborhood, and we come for sandwiches and menus del dia. But here's what I wanted to warn you about, or at least let you know about, is that often people say to me that their image of where they want to live in Spain is a house with a garden and a pool, and within a few minutes walking distance of shops, cafes, bars, you know, the whole kind of urban thing that I've been showing you and talking about here. If you want the house and the pool, often where people end up living is in what's called urbanizaciones, urbanizations, effectively housing developments. And these are places that are kind of like, look sort of suburban, and they have the houses with the gardens and the pools and things like that. But the thing with these is they're often built, particularly in the coastal areas, but all over the country, they're often built sort of in the outskirts of the cities. And they're often not necessarily within walking distance of the urban center. You know, they might be a 5-10 minute drive away. So if you want to have this truly car-free life of moving around on foot and metro and bus, it quite possibly means you're going to be living in an apartment, or at least a smaller space in an urban center. If you want the house with the pool and the garden, it might have to be a little bit further out, and that might imply that you're going to need a car at least to head into the urban center. There will be buses and things like that as well, but just a heads up on that distinction.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Hasta luego.
Oop, there is one bike left. I want to show you how in Madrid we have this fantastic city bike scheme. You know, there's a lot of cities in Spain, Barcelona, Seville, Zaragoza, that have these, but I've arrived at the station near my house and it's empty, apart from one, and I can't unblock it. So let's find another one. There's one nearby with 2 bikes. Let's go and see if we're lucky. Okay, the bikes are around here somewhere. There they are. Will there be 2? There's one. It said there was 2, and there's one. I mean, look, this is the real deal. Car life. Do you need a car? Do you not need a car? Depends on what the options are. In Madrid, I haven't used BT Mud, the municipal bike service, for 4 years, and I've heard people complain about it. Maybe I just don't know how it works. This time of day, it's hard to get bikes in the outskirts where I live. There's municipal bike programs in Seville and Barcelona and Zaragoza. I believe the one in Barcelona is very good, but I refuse to be defeated here. I want to get on a municipal bike as a part of this video. Wait, it worked. I did actually try this once before, and the scanning of the QR didn't work, but if I put the number in, it did unlock. So maybe the other one would have worked as well. So you just got to know the quirks to the system, obviously. But I have my bike. So these are electric bikes in Madrid, because Madrid's a little bit hilly, and the cost is about 50 cents for up to 30 minutes, for the first 30 minutes, and I think another 50 cents for the next 30 minutes. And you can get a flat rate for the month of 10 euros, which is kind of all you can eat, I think, as long as they're under 30 minutes each ride. So if you're just using them to move about, you know, neighborhoods, it's pretty handy. Obviously, once you get the quirks of the system. Hola, ¿qué tal? Done. But the catch is that just because a city has a municipal bike scheme doesn't mean that it's a super bike-friendly city. Right behind me is Calle Alcalá, super busy street in Madrid. There's a lot of busy streets in Madrid, so maybe if you live in the historic center and it's more pedestrian-friendly, that's okay. I know I have friends who use this scheme in Seville and live in the historic center. It's great because there's such pedestrian-friendly areas. But if you're out in this area, you have to be a little bit careful. Though I do take my daughter to school on our bike in the mornings, and yeah, once you get the hang of it, it's okay. But you just got to be aware. But there are certain moments where you just might need a car, but that doesn't mean you have to own one. This is it. Here it is. So this is a car from Free to Move, which is one of the car sharing services in Madrid where you can rent cars for the minute or for the day. A number of Spanish cities have these, obviously around the world as well. So let's see if I have a little more luck here than I did on the bike. Right. The thing that makes me most afraid of renting this is trying to find a park for it later, but taking one for the team. I am going to put the window up. I feel like, okay, that doesn't go up. I don't think I've rented it yet. I think it was just unlocked. Alquilar. Rent. Start. Okay. So apparently it's good to go. Let me try and... There it is. All right. Let's take it for a drive. Oh, puerta y maletero. Something's open. The door is open. Somebody left this unlocked and the door's open. All right, I'm parking. Let's go and figure out what's going on. Okay. If I'm honest, the whole bike rental car thing has been very unsuccessful, to be honest. That worked. Okay, now it's closed. So the car is working. So this is an electric car. The charging situation in Spain at the moment, there's almost 50,000 charging points, although I've read that it's been reported that up to 20% may not be working at various times. There's issues with maintenance. And there's just issues with rollout and infrastructure. And generally, Spaniards have lower confidence in the charging network than the European average. But it is getting better every year. Would I buy a fully electric car in Spain yet? Depends where I lived. It depends how I was, what my lifestyle was. But I would certainly do my research first before I did. It's a nice little car. These are great if you've got to do an IKEA trip, or we used one once when we were coming home from Yoli's parents' place on New Year's Eve, and there was no buses, and so we rented one of these. But yeah, big shopping trips, IKEA for furniture, it was a little bit nerve-wracking, the initial unlocking process and wondering if the door would close, but it worked. And there's other companies as well, and not just in Madrid, obviously, in other cities throughout Spain. So I said earlier that I thought the whole bike and car rental situation was very unsuccessful. I think that was a little unfair. I got both working. There were just some quirks that I needed to get used to. In the end, this car did lock. I just had to slam the door. But check this out. I now know why the window was down. It goes halfway, then it goes down. I guess these cars get put through their paces, but hey, if I didn't have a car and I needed to get to IKEA, this car would do the trick. I just might get a little wet if it was raining. Luckily, it never rains in Madrid. And of course, if you need a car, you don't have to actually drive yourself around necessarily. Hey guys, just briefly, I've put together something that I think is going to be really helpful if you're looking at moving to Spain. It's this, and it's called the Move to Spain Self-Assessment. Effectively, in 10 short minutes, you can go through this self-assessment, this document, and it's going to let you know how close you are to a move to Spain, what might be missing in your plan, and what the next steps are that you can take to get closer to your move to Spain. So just in 10 minutes, it's going to really give you some clarity on your move to Spain. So The link is down below. You can get it also at spainrevealed.com/ready. So grab that and I hope it helps. All right, let's get back to the video.
Hola, buenas. ¿Qué tal? Of course, we have Uber and taxis, just like a lot of places. Which do I prefer? I mean, I chop and change. Sometimes I'll look on the app for both. For taxis, there's an app called Free Now. And obviously then there's the Uber app, and I'll just see what is going to be fastest, what's going to be cheapest. One of the things with taxis is they can, at least in Madrid, access the taxi lanes, which Uber and similar companies can't. So that can mean at rush hour, taxis are faster. But in this case, we're hitting the Atocha train station, where fast trains and not quite as fast trains leave from, which are more options in your arsenal for exploring the country and for if you live in the outskirts. Oh, and one thing to add. Yep, there's obviously taxis all over the country, but not necessarily Uber. It does depend on the city that you're in, whether that option's available. Nuevamente. Hasta luego. So, welcome to Atocha train station, one of the hubs in Madrid for Spain's fast train network. And I was excited to show you the beautiful interior gardens that they have here. But what I got instead was massive works being done. But as many of you know already, Spain's fast train network is a boon for traveling around this country without a car and exploring it. You know, it's the longest fast train network in Europe, the second largest in the world after China. Trains extremely comfortable, up to 300 kilometers an hour. And now with 4 companies, or 4 brands at least, that you can choose from, prices have dropped. It's really cost effective to take city breaks to explore the country, again, without a car. But I think it's fair to say that fast trains don't always cut it for every kind of trip. Sometimes you do need a car. You don't necessarily have to buy one. Obviously, you can rent a car. There's plenty of different options. What we always do before we had our own car is to go to an aggregator like rentalcars.com, not sponsored, and then find out what the best option was and then book it direct through the rental car company, which always felt like a safer option than going through the aggregator. Hola, sí, un café americano. Gracias. Let's take a moment and talk about driver's licenses. We've talked about cars a lot, and you're wondering, well, can I use my driver's license here? So yes, you can for 6 months. For 6 months, up to 6 months, you can drive on your home driver's license in Spain. You do need an international driver's permit to accompany it. An international driver's permit is not actually a driver's license. It's effectively a translation of your license. So you have to carry both of them. And you get the driver's permit at like the AAA and organizations like that. You know, it's like $20 or, you know, whatever it is in your country. But you need both of them. And then after 6 months, one of 2 things is going to happen. If your country has an agreement with Spain whereby you can switch your driver's license over for a Spanish one, which was what I was able to do with my New Zealand license, then you go through a bureaucratic process, you switch it over, and you get a Spanish license. You got to do an eye test, a psychometric test, or was it psychometric? The one to make sure you got good coordination. If there's no agreement, then I'm afraid you have to sit the Spanish driver's license test. The theory and the practical. You kind of have to start a little bit from zero, learn how to drive in Spain officially, and then sit the exams and pass. And, you know, I know for those from the US particularly, where there's no agreement, that's a huge pain, but it's the reality. And look, that's a whole other video, but plenty of people do it. It's possible. There's practice exams. You can do it. Okay, back to trains, because if you want to live in Spain without a car, there is one train network that you have to know about. It kind of sits between the metro and the fast trains. And I tell you what, it strikes fear into my heart. And it's called the Cercanías, which effectively translates as suburban train or commuter train, and it connects the city with the outlying areas, outlying towns, villages, further flung neighborhoods. And, these cercanías or suburban train networks are all throughout the country, connecting the cities with the surrounding areas. And the one in Madrid, at least, is so confusing. There's even blog posts about how confusing it is. So I'm going to see if I can get a ticket to take me to Chamartín, which is another station on the network, and see if I can actually get there, because I generally always get lost.
And trust me, I'm not an idiot. But I don't want to strike fear into your heart. You're going to think that you've got to go and buy a car if you move to Spain because you can't figure out the train network. No, you can figure it out. It's just a process, right? So let's see how we go. Okay, I want to go to Chamartín. I don't have one of these cards, so I need one. Just want a single one. 170. So far, so good. Getting the ticket is easy, but getting on the train and having no idea where you're going, that's when it gets fun. All right, next. This is where it gets confusing. There's different lines, and it doesn't always announce where the train on a certain line is going to. But Chamartín. Okay, I think this is us. I picked an easier one. I think that might be my train. This is the issue. Up there is a sign that says where this train is going, but often it doesn't say all the stops. But look, all jokes aside, these trains are pretty handy. And, if you live in the outskirts and you're wondering, well, how am I going to get into the city? Regardless of what city you're living in, these are a really good option once you figure it out. But I think you need to be a little bit careful. Check how often they run. How close is the station to where you're going to be living? This is not a metro. There's not a station every 10, 15-minute walk. So you really want to see if you're going to live in the outskirts of a city, is the suburban train network really going to serve you, or is it going to be a bit of a struggle to access it? Case in point, I have a friend who lives in a town in the mountains just to the north of Madrid, a decent-sized town, which has a suburban train station. And so when we have dinner together at the center of Madrid, he comes in on the suburban train. We have dinner, and then he takes the last train back. It does mean that he has to kind of leave dinner maybe a little earlier than what you would expect in Spain because he needs to get that last train. So if you're going to rely on the suburban train network of any of the different suburban train networks in Spain, just be aware potentially of some of the limitations. Este es Chamartín, ¿no? Sí, ¿no? They're not sure either. Sí. Vale. Muy típico de cercanías, ¿no? The people next to me were also asking other people around them if this was Chamartín. So it's kind of you work as a group. Everyone figures it out, and you rely on each other. So, makes it more fun. Despite the myriad of transport options available for you in Spain, you might still need, or at least want, to own a car. And I think whether that's true depends on two different factors. Let me tell you what they are. Hola, buenas. I'll tell you what, one of the beauties of not driving is you can have one or two of these. Okay, so the two factors that might, mean that you want to get a car. One is just going to be location. Look, one thing is living in the center of Madrid or the outskirts of Madrid or a smaller town. It doesn't matter. But if you're up in the mountains of Malaga in a village or in an urbanization that's separate from a village or a town, then yeah, there's going to be buses and, some options, but it just might be a little bit too much hard work constantly. If you're somewhere in the province of Valencia, in a small town, there's going to be connections with the center, but you just might want a car in your arsenal because it's going to give you more optionality for living your life, going home late, the big trip to the supermarket or the, or IKEA, whatever it is. So that's location. The other one is lifestyle. For the first 8 years that we lived in Madrid, we didn't have a car. We didn't need a car. We took fast trains on trips. We rented cars. We walked around on foot and metro in the city. But once we had kids, the idea of having a car just made a lot of things much easier. Visiting Yoli's parents who live in Alcorcón, which is a 30-minute drive to the south, or going on a trip, renting cars and figuring out child seats and baby seats and all that sort of stuff, it kind of got old pretty quick. Or maybe you don't have kids, but you take trips constantly and you're always doing road trips and you want that flexibility to just take off on a moment's notice without having to go through the rigmarole of renting a car. Whatever it is, location and lifestyle. But here's the thing, we own a car in Spain, but we don't live a car life in Spain. So even if you decide you do want a car, don't fear that it means you're suddenly going to live a car life, because there is a myriad of transport options that you can use to supplement, that you can use instead of the car, and you know you've got the car there when you need it. Guys, if you want to watch another video where I talk about how to help you move to Spain the right way and set up your life here, check this video out that's popping up on the corner of the screen there, and we'll see you over there in a moment. Okay, ciao.